Hi.
Hi.
We're Tommy Bertelsen.
And Troian Bellisario.
And we're going live.
We are live.
Oh, we're live.
We're live.
We'll do it live.
I'm going to do it live.
So, now that we're live, we
Yeah.
wanted to chat with you guys a little bit about Feed, the movie that we made together. Some of you guys know what's going on. Some of you guys have seen it. Some of you guys haven't. So if you have submitted any questions, we are very excited to answer them.
Extremely excited to answer them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, how are you feeling right now while we wait for questions?
I'm a little bit damp. I'm a little bit sweaty currently with
in
the
the
lights
places?
in the armpits.
Yeah.
I'm feeling quite excited about showing the movie tonight. A lot of anticipation,
Yeah.
a little bit of anxiety, and some slight confusion. And yourself?
Yeah, I'd say high anticipation, high anxiety, high excitement.
Yes.
Also base level confusion.
Base level confusion, but with love both for folks on the other side of the telephone, and
Yeah.
then love for you, of course, and then
So
love
much
for this
love.
film that we made, which we're extremely proud of, and
Yeah.
we feel strongly about.
We feel pretty strongly about
I'd
it.
say strong to very strong.
Yeah, I feel like we love it.
Yeah,
Someone just asked
so
you,
how
how
do we-
did you know it was the right time to tell your story?
great question.
That is a great question. And actually, that's a huge part of the reason that Tommy's here was because I wrote this story a long time ago. Oh, look, we can look at floating hearts and we can also answer questions at the same
Yeah.
time. I wrote this story a long time ago, and I really tried to get it made for a number of years. And it really wasn't until I went to Tommy and I said, look, if I'm going to make this, I need a really good friend by my side who's also incredibly talented. So would you do this with me? And then Tommy was kind of the person who went full in, almost like more than I had, because I'd been championing it by myself for so long. And so he did this thing where he was kind of like, let me take the torch and really try to put it together. And
I
you
think
were the
she's
reason
being a
that you
little
did it.
modest. I don't think she can say I went in any harder or any more intensely than you did.
Yeah.
But you had been battling alone for a long time, pushing this project uphill solo. And when our paths recrossed at the right time with this project, I was able to then hold with you
Yeah.
and push up together, which I think
Yeah.
is great.
Sure.
There's a question here that I thought was pretty both straightforward and then also nice. And that question is, were you emotional while writing and filming Feed? And I think that's an interesting question
Yeah.
for folks who don't make movies or don't necessarily tell stories, understanding what it's like for you to engage with your work or for us to engage with the work. And so I think somebody asking whether you were emotional or not while writing and filming Feed is probably a really relevant question. And I think
Yeah.
we should talk about that.
I think mostly while writing it, it was a very sort of quiet. I don't really remember feeling very emotional, other than the emotions that I tried to remember about my experiences or tried to imagine myself going through as Olivia. There was a lot of projecting myself into Olivia's mind because I knew I wanted to not only write the film but also act in it as Olivia. And then when we were filming, there were a lot of emotions.
Yes.
Tommy was also really patient with me because there would be a lot of times when I would be sort of uncomfortable in a scene, and I would maybe get a little bit testy with you, and you were like, hey, I think you're feeling the emotion of the scene right now, so I'm going to let you be quiet over here. And I was like, I guess you're right.
Yeah, I don't remember too many times when I felt that you were testy. I feel like tensions and anxieties were high, but you're always much kinder. Troian is a people pleaser at heart, which is something that she does constantly, which is both a big positive in her life and in my experience as her friend, also a detriment to herself because sometimes she's too generous to other people. But you did.
We've
there was
had a lot of
going
late night
on.
Conversations about this.
Yeah, we could just let's talk about our friendship. Let's see. Something was
What else?
What else? There was a question here. It's the first one you told about. This is a simple one. Who's the first one you told about writing Feed the movie? That's going to be for Troian as well.
Who was the first person I told?
Yeah, so when you first either conceived of this idea or first began putting a pen to paper or your fingers to a keyboard, who's the first person
Actually,
who told you were doing it?
The first person I told when the idea sprung into my head was our friend Peter Vack.
Yes?
I called him and I said, I think I have an idea of how to write this story. And I started to explain it. I was in the car and I started to explain it to him on the phone. And he said, I really don't want to hear you talk about it. I really want to read the script. So that shut me right up, and I went home and I started writing it. And I think he was one of the first people to ever read it before you read it, which was not long after that. The first time that you ever read Feed was like really not long after that.
It was quite early.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was mad early.
It's mad. Yo, what's up, everybody? It's your boy, the kid, mad early, coming at you live.
If you follow him on Instagram, that's just a character that you'll end up seeing. All right, what else?
From
Tommy,
what
were your thoughts? I want to read this question for you. Let me read it. God. Tommy, what were your thoughts when T said she wanted to act in it as well?
This is an interesting
God,
question.
I'm so mad. I
So
there
there was no moment when she specifically told me she wanted to act in it. In fact, there was a moment when Troian told me she did not want to act in it. Now, Troian had been pushing this ball uphill for a very long time. She had written this film herself. She had gone around town pitching it herself. Even once I had gotten involved and then we went out and got financing for this movie together, it was still up in the air in her head whether she should be taking on this role herself, both for very justifiable reasons, like it being extremely personal and challenging material, and then for other unjustifiable reasons about whether she thought she was ready to take on this role. There were like age questions because she had ran into this movie a little bit earlier in her life and she was not 17 at the time, and there were complicated questions in her mind about that, and she, I think, was wrestling with a little bit of self-doubt perhaps, like we all do. Not if I don't want to step over and say what you were wrestling with, but I think so. And after one of our meetings at a studio, we were driving back. We were just talking about this in the car.
Yeah.
We were driving back to Silver Lake from a spot in Studio City, or in Culver City, and Troian was questioning herself and saying basically that she did not want to star in this movie. And what I said is that this movie is a personal project that came from your soul and came from your heart, and you're the best actress I've ever seen in my entire life, and it would be a disservice to the community out there and a disservice to myself for anybody else to play this role. And I'm so glad she did not decide to step away from it, because she really did an incredible job, and I do think that it would have been inauthentic to the material for anybody else to take it on.
I also want to be really clear that that's not exactly how he put it. I believe what he said after we had a really, really good meeting at a studio, and what I was like saying is, I was like, if we need to make it with somebody else because they won't want to support me in the role. And I believe Tommy looked at me and was like, we were on the freeway so he couldn't stop the car, but I believe he almost said, stop the car because I'm not going to make the movie
without you.
Without you.
Which I wouldn't have done.
Yeah.
We had then picked up speed, and then what, I'm going to throw the baby from the train? That seems like a crazy.
Yeah.
It seems like an unwise thing to do.
So
we didn't do
good,
it.
Good question. Let's see. Dun, dun, dun. Oh, are you happy how the movie came out for both of us?
For both of us. Okay, on the count of 3. One word answer. No, I'm just
word?
joking. No, that's an unhealthy, unwise thing to do.
Yeah.
How
do we feel? I think we both feel there's a part in filmmaking where you've been imagining the movie, whether you're in the process of writing it or you've been in pre-production, and you've been imagining the movie and you have this idea in your head, and then you shoot the movie, and then you look at like the first cut.
Yeah.
And you're going through this recently because he's also been making his second feature. And your first cut is always that sort of like clash where it looks like that often, where you're like, oh my God, this looks nothing like the movie I've made. I failed. This is awful. But then you start to work through the editing process and realize that this is the movie that you made, and how can you support that, and how can you, love that. And so I think what we ended up doing with Feed was, like we learned, because it was our first feature, to let go of all of those expectations and then fall in love with
what the movie becomes, right?
Yes.
So you want it to be this one thing, and then you add all of these creative collaborators and all these ideas, and then life happens, and then it turns into this other thing that flowers up from inside of it, and then you learn to create with, wrestle with, and love that. But in short,
Yeah.
I'm very happy and proud of how the film turned out, and I think that
We both are.
our actors and all of the key collaborators that we had the opportunity to work with did a great job, and I'm really proud of it, and yeah, I feel great about it. I hope other people like it too.
So what do we think? Should we take one more question, and then we're gonna be switching over to IG? No, crying in the club is not a question.
Brazil wants the movie here. Lots of people in Brazil very upset that it's not released out there. I love that
It's
people
not.
care.
It is
In
in
August.
August. You're getting it in August. I was like, of course it's released in Brazil. Let's see. What was it? Let's see. What should we think? What was the hardest or most emotional scene to film? What do you think was the hardest scene to film?
Okay. Okay, the most challenging scene to
Yeah.
film. Well, there are technical
what reason?
There are technical challenges, and then there are creative and emotional challenges. Okay, one scene that does encapsulate what was most difficult to make was there's a scene at the end of the film where our two lead characters end up on a balcony together, and I don't want to spoil emotionally or narratively what's happening, but they're both going through something together that is very intense and making a decision. And they're standing up there, and Troian and Tom, who are playing the lead characters in our film, are both in a very delicate space. They're both very rooted inside their characters and walking in the shoes of our characters very deeply. So they're ramped up emotionally. Technically, it's at the end of the day, so we have no time left. We have no money to go over. We're getting told that there's like only one more shot we can get, and there's stunts involved, and people are attached to wires, and they're standing on a ledge, and it was a dangerous scene, just like practically, and it was dangerous for them emotionally, and we kept having to get a few other takes because we were shooting it from different angles and needed to get the exact moment that we wanted. And I had to watch Troy and Tom both go to a very delicate and emotionally raw place over and over again while in a physically unstable environment, and that was dangerous. And our producer Ross, went out on a ledge
literally
for us and allowed us to go overtime when he absolutely should not have, financially, and he saved that scene, and I'm very happy with how it turned out. And that was a really challenging moment, I think, for everybody.
I think that's I would definitely agree with that. So thank you guys.
Thank you guys.
Thanks for tuning in and for asking all of your questions. We're going to go to Instagram now.
All right.
Okay.
See you at Insta.
Bye.